Unmuted. All right. Ah, right. Okay.
Mazel tov. How is it to have a married child?
To tell you the truth, I've been waiting for another daughter for years to get more feminine energy in this house, and that's just the joy. Honestly, having another daughter that I didn't have to deal with her adolescence is great.
Yay! Oh my gosh, stop. Don't talk to me about adolescence. I can't. Nope. I'm not going there. I'm not believing in it.
What,
I'm a
because
strong
your
believer of
girls
what.
are born teenagers?
Yeah, first of all, yes. And second of all, I like what my parents did, which is just like, oh, you guys reached 13? Bye. See you in 3 years. Been great. uh, anyway, so how is it going? It was beautiful, by the way. Seriously, so nice. I was crying so much. I'm
Were
like,
you?
I don't know.
Why?
Yeah, because first of all, because I'm pregnant and hormonal, and like a wedding is just beautiful. It's like it's so emotional. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
come on, you've watched Fiddler on the Roof, sunrise, sunset.
Yep. It's actually my daughter-in-law. It's one of her favorite movies. And my son
Ah,
was like, Mushka, it's a horrible movie. How could you watch it? It's like, because really, it's like there's a terrible message in there, right?
I mean,
Because
it's
one daughter
unfortunately
flies
like
out, one
history. I
daughter
don't know.
intermarries. Like, it's just. So, no, so they had this whole discussion, and he was like, sorry, did you ever read Tovia and the Promised Land?
No, no.
So this guy Tzvi Fishman wrote an amazing sequel. It's in Hebrew and in English, like meaning they translated it. So it
Okay.
appears I'm very picky about Jewish literature because I'm not going to give someone a pass just because they're from or Jewish.
All right.
I genuinely enjoyed the writing in this.
Did you read The Fiddler on the Roof, by the way, or just watch the movie?
No, just watched the movie and sang the soundtrack like 5 million times. But
So
no, but Tzvi
when you read
Fishman,
it, you're like
what?
literally laughing out loud.
Oh yeah, Shalom Aleichem was hilarious, totally.
Like literally everything about it is like, how could you capture Jewishness so well? How did you do it? Like, it's amazing. Anyway, so
But
that's
anyway,
so
so
funny.
but
This is the
but but it's
second
a
time
very
today that I think
disheartening
about this.
message. So Tzvi Fishman
Yeah.
hated that, so he wrote a sequel where he doesn't like make it like, okay, the fairy godmother shows up and like everything works itself out. Like it develops very slowly how like in a feasible way about how Tevi and his wife make aliyah and like the kids slowly do teshuva, but it's just well done. It's really well done. Like taking history into consideration, like he did a great job.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I'll have to look into it because, like,
I mean,
seriously,
if
it's
they
one of my
had
favorite books. It's
if
amazing.
he had a budget, he would totally turn it into a movie because, like, that's actually before he balled Shubert out. He spent the 60s and 70s as like a very popular screenwriter in Hollywood, and then he went to Machon Meir, and
Oh,
the rest is history.
quite the
Anyway,
opposite of the story of the Fiddler on the Roof. It's so funny because, like, literally this morning I was driving in Beitar, like not
uh-huh.
in Beitar.
You
I
can't
drove by
drive in
Beitar.
Beitar, Sarah. Isn't Beitar under lockdown?
Right. So that was such a funny thing. Like literally, I'm driving by it, and like you've driven that road, yeah? Like I'm
Only
just gonna
5
assume
million
that for
times,
sure.
yeah. Well, because we lived in the
So
Gush
like,
for almost 10 years, and Yosef Yitzhak actually went to Cheder in Beitar, in the Chabad Cheder there, when there was only one of them. We're going back like
which
18, 19 years. No, oh my gosh, we're going back.
Aw,
Yeah, because he went there after his upshare. He went to the Cheder in
and now
Beitar
you
when he
just
was 3.
married him off. Aw. So anyway, like they're literally families standing outside of Beitar with bags and bags and bags. Like I don't know the story, but like literally it was like the last scene from Fiddler on the Roof
No, but
that the
bags of
families are
what?
just going. I don't know, man. They're like,
No, like, wait,
you know
sorry,
how
they're
like
tramping? They're like,
no, like plastic bags, but like let's say that each family member has at least 2 plastic bags
but
of
with
stuff.
what?
God knows. I'm not gonna ask. I can't stop next to them. That's one of the things. You're not supposed to be in touch with them, no?
Yeah, they're
Uh,
lepers.
so yeah, like I was like literally thinking like it looked exactly like that scene. I'm like, where are they going? Who's picking them up? Like
Right.
what is happening? There's so much missing from this story.
Oh my gosh, like that's applicable to like so much of the world and what's going on right now. Fake news
For
every
sure.
corner. Go know what's real. The stuff that's really whacked out is actually probably true, and the stuff that's kind of feasible is probably not. And
Right. Yep.
by the way, Sarah, the wedding is actually miraculous because you know that the police drove by like the wedding hall like 3 times and they just kept going,
Are
like
you
they didn't
serious?
stop to check. It was like a Jedi mind trick. Like you will pass. You will not stop and glance inside. Anyway. All right, are we waiting for anybody else or we're just going to start? Okay,
Okay,
they
listen.
snooze, they lose. We're going to start. Okay. So, yeah, I had a really hard time preparing this year because my brain was going in so many different directions. And no, not because of the wedding, just because I wanted to cover so much. And I was like thinking, what do I not say? And it's like, but I have to say that, but I have to say that. And I was just had a lot of trouble of just like whittling it down. So the other thing I wanted to say was that I had assigned 2 gemaras for you guys to look at. And one of them I assigned knowing that I'm not going to get it to today, and I'll tell you why. We are going to do the Masechet Shabbat one today, so I hope, Rivki Horowitz, I see, the R is you, right, Rivki? Yes, I definitely see you here. So basically, Masechet Shabbat we will go through today, and because this chapter was very long, and there's basically 2 major stories in there. The first, like 13 psukim, are the summary of Shlomo's career, or the negative side of his career. And then from 14 on, there's the whole perplexing section of about Hashem creating or appointing what he calls in pshat satanim, right? The satan, which just in biblical Hebrew simply means obstacle. Yes, it has the connotation of an evil angel, but that actually tells us how Judaism perceives the devil, or whatever you want to call him, is that he's just an angel like the other angels. That what is his job? To be an obstacle. So whereas Raphael, his job is to heal people, and like each one has their job. So Satan, whatever his real name is, and we also, just for the record, Raphael is not the angel's real name. Gabriel, Michael, it's okay to say those because that's not their real names, right? Their real names are what are recorded in, the Arizal's books. But basically saying the word Raphael or Gabriel is just like saying lawyer, doctor, professor. It's a job description. So basically, right, that's their jobs. So then we even have, Samech Memkel, where his job is to be a satan, right? Is like, it's even a verb in Tanakh, lehastin. Not to be confused with lehashtin, which is to urinate, but basically, right, is to be an obstacle, to like create friction, to be a counterforce, to build muscles. So basically, that we're going to do next time. But the Gemara that I had assigned from Masechet Gitin about the Shamir and about all that, I'm not sure we're going to get today. We'll see. The reason I had assigned is because it was very long. I wanted you guys to have time to go over it at least once, because I know you guys, like, because your schedules are nuts, you guys, like, it takes you time to get to, usually through the day before. And I really want us to do it justice. So I want to give you guys a heads up, like a head start, to look at it so that you can look at it more in depth, so we can really, really go into it. Because as a lot of you read, you guys immediately send me emails, oh my God, this is cracked out. What the heck? What? I don't even understand anything here. What is going on? Right. That's a good reaction for a first read. Excellent. Okay. Like, check mark. Fantastic. So anyway, so I'm just telling you that the agenda for today, as you see the question on the board, is we're going to discuss like what happened to Shlomo, because that's really pretty much the first, reaction when you get to chapter 11, right? Because up until that point, it's pretty much a glorious career. Gold and silver are not worth anything in his days, such prosperity. He builds the base of Mikdash and it's glorious, and everything is glorious, and his PR and his, like, all of his PR and all of his international relations are like amazing. All the countries are coming and bowing before him and accepting Hashem, and everything seems to be honky dory. And then all of a sudden, like, whoop, like, chapter 11 opens with him just becoming somewhat of a villainous character, and just having a nefarious career instead of a glorious career. So, like, what's up with that tonal change? Like, how does it flip like that? Not just in the text itself, right? Because there's a sharp, abrupt change in the text itself. But other than that, if we're assuming that this is a somewhat, like, accurate record of Shlomo's career, so then what happened to him? Like, meaning he's wonderful, a prophet, receiving, like, okay, Beth is saying chapter in bankruptcy in American legalese. I think there's something a little more going on there than that, but that's a very important theory. We'll see. Wait, which chapter is it? Is it in the 12? Hold on. Yeah, chapter 12, we're going to see clearly what you're referring to. And there was something I'd said to you guys when we were doing chapter 4. I was like, hold on to this name because he's going to appear in the future. So that's it. Already next class, or no, in 2 classes, we'll see, like, oh, wow, like, there was a whole other side to the picture that wasn't emphasized. And suddenly the fit hits the shan, in chapter 12, where all of the stuff is being swept under the rug, just the rug explodes, basically. But that's in chapter 12. So far with chapter 11, like, what happened to Shlomo? Like, really, we're just going to chalk it up to old age, infirmity. Like, I don't know about you guys. I know so many people that, specifically men, that age like fine wine. Obviously, I know women like that too. Totally. Duh. But specifically men I'm thinking of that, like, literally, like, they don't succumb to the whole, oh, he became a crotchety, rickety old man. And that's very much the picture that Yirmiyahu is, like, painting. And that's the most flattering picture he's painting, a painting of Shlomo. It's just that, oh, Nebuch, he's weak and he doesn't have the energy to stand up to his wives and, whatever. But really? Like, really, in his old age, his wife swayed his heart? Because we would think, right, that if someone is on a good path, right, if someone's, like, doing the inner work, and especially if someone's a tzaddik, right, so we would assume that you only get stronger, just like all habits get stronger. It's not only bad habits that get stronger. Good habits also get stronger. So that, when something good becomes habitual, it just becomes more and more entrenched within you. So if he's been so good for so long, really, he's going to pull a 180 and, like, suddenly all that's just going to go out the window just because he suddenly retires? I mean, at least, like hits pension age? Really? Like, how does that even make sense? Just purely psychologically, right? In terms of human development. If a person's a tzaddik from the time that they're a child, right? And we know that Shlomo's starting his career about at the age of 12 approximately. That's a kid. That's his formative years. He's getting great guidance. Oh, Ariella has joined us. Awesome. And so from childhood, he's already going on a righteous path. And suddenly, like, boom, he just, his entire legacy goes out the window really abruptly. That doesn't even make sense. So that's going to be the question that we're going to be addressing today, is how did that even happen? Like, what's hiding in the text? Okay, Sarah isn't there a Hasidic story exactly about that, about how circumcised only to tempt the old men? That is true. But what in that Hasidic text, I don't know which one you're referring to because I can offhand think of a few. Was it someone who's a tzaddik or someone who's like a chassid? You know what I mean, Sarah? So, because if it's like a tzaddik, that's one thing, and they tend to become stronger in old age, whereas it's a chassid, that's a different story because they're still struggling. Like even a Benoni, that's the difference between a tzaddik and a Benoni, right? Is that a Benoni he still struggles in his own way, right? Whereas tzaddik, the struggle is transposed to a whole other dimension. I'm not saying there's no struggle, but it's just it doesn't even begin in the terms that I'm thinking of. So basically, the other thing is that I've been like literally just holding it in for the past several chapters, since basically chapter 7, 8, where I wanted to say something. I'm like, okay, no, just wait until I get to chapter 11 and then like start tying things together. I kept mentioning that like there's a certain flow occurring, that in real time, in chapter 8 and chapter 9, certain things looked kind of abrupt. And now we can zoom out and just kind of see the flow. But so start with that. And then we'll dive into, so what is going on with Shlomo, like other than just getting older. And just for the record, if you look up Midrashim on him, did anyone like remember learning in Midrashim about Shlomo? How, like, did Shlomo make it to old age? Like, how old is he when he talks about feeling old? Just do simple math, by the way, ladies, right? Because we know how long Shlomo ruled. How long was his reign? Right, 40 years, exactly. And we said that he either started ruling at the age of 12 or 13. So how old could he already be?
50.
52, 53, exactly. That's not old. Even, and it's certainly not in Tanachic, terminology. The interesting thing, who is the other biblical character that he's called old at the age of 53, 54? It's a machlokas. Another character that says, I'm already ancient, and we know that he's only in his mid-50s at best. He's probably in his early 50s. I'll leave that there for you guys as a brain teaser. But one of the characters from the earlier books of Navi before Melachim. Not going to tell you which one. Okay. But there is an opinion that he actually, hold on. Meanwhile, Benayahu is up and kicking Team Tuchas at the age of. We don't know. He's really a perplexing character. When we do the Gemara in Gittin, we'll see, what we can glean about this amazing samurai character, of Benayahu ben Yehoyada, who Bichlal is a total paradox because ostensibly he's a Kohen, and Kohanim are not allowed to be warriors. They're not even allowed to serve in the army. So how is it that he's like literally slicing and dicing people, and he's a Kohen? What's that about? So I don't know. I'm telling you flat out, I don't know. I've been searching. I've not yet found an answer. I just found like fact, like, yeah, he's a Kohen and he's a Kiktucha samurai, and that's all I've been able to find. Okay, so basically, the stories have been unfolding since the construction of the Beis Hamikdash to paint a very specific picture that were we to zoom out and start connecting the dots, it would just be like, duh, okay? One of the things is that when Shlomo finishes building the Beis Hamikdash, right, you guys read this like long prayer that he gets up and he says, and we analyzed it, and there was one part that really, really jutted out that was, just seemed kind of random. In Pasuk Mem Aleph, right, in Perek Chet, so chapter 8, verse 41, all of a sudden, Shlomo starts talking about V'gam ela nochri asher lo me'amcha Yisrael hu, starts talking about, and even Gentiles will come to the Beis Hamikdash, and they will have a place there too, where God, you will hear them, right? That the Shlomo says, Ki yishma'u et shimcha gadol ve'et yadcha chazaka, that they will hear about your great name, O God. Uba, והתפלל אל הבית הזה, אתה תשמע השמיים מכון שבטך ועשית ככל אשר יקרא אליך הנוכרי. And Shlomo even says, you, God, you'll be sitting up in heaven and you will be listening to the Gentile that comes to your house and you will answer whatever he asks from you. You will answer him. It's like, what does Shlomo care? Like, what's going on here? So he actually clues us in his prayer. Leman yed'un kol amei haaretz et shmecha liyirah otcha kemcha Yisrael. So what we would call, or lagoyim, to be a light unto the nations. That's Shlomo's vision. So he's saying, and why do I want these Gentiles? So again, bear in mind, ladies, is very different than missionaries. We're not talking about missionizing or any Jewish crusades of any type. We're talking about a person, a non-Jewish person of their own volition, hearing about this amazing God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, getting inspired, coming to Jerusalem to feel out, what is this about? I mean, I heard the tales about the Jews out of Egypt. I heard about the plagues. I want to see for myself. I hear they have this glorious king now that built this temple. What is this all about? Let's go see. And he's going to come and he's going to get inspired. He's going to pray to you and he's going to choose to be a Noahide, right? So that's all we're talking about, is just them choosing to be Noahides, keep the Shem Mitzvot B'nei Noach, and that he will be faithful to the one creator and he'll be monotheistic. So Shlomo is talking about this, and then it goes on to talk about, but we're going to mess up and we're going to sin, and you'll always answer everybody's prayers, you'll get forgiveness, yada yada. And then it describes the Chanukata Beit HaMikdash, like the inauguration, where they skipped Yom Kippur according to the Midrash, etc. And then after it finishes summarizing the inauguration of the temple, the Chanukata Bait, then we're given a brief little revelation or prophecy from Hashem to Shlomo saying, I heard your prayer, duly noted, heard what you had to say. Just know there's no guarantees. You don't have a blank check just because you built me a Beis HaMikdash. If you don't follow the Torah, then guess what? I don't mind destroying this thing. Yes, I know it's glorious. Yes, I'm shooting myself in the foot. But just understand, this house will be barren and desolate and will be a pile of rubble if you guys don't keep the Torah and mitzvot. Like, this thing is not a guarantee. And for the record, part of why this prophecy is here is because this is very much a theme that is going to be like a scarlet thread woven throughout all the rest of the prakim of Sefer Melachim. We'll see in various kings' careers, the attitude toward the Beit HaMikdash literally was the major litmus test for the nation's spiritual status. Like, that there were times where they really just took the Beit HaMikdash for granted, and we'll see Yirmiyahu the prophet in his own book just complains, you guys are becoming corrupt because you're taking the Beit HaMikdash as an open check that, okay, God's not going to do anything. So this prophecy is here saying, please understand this is not a guarantee. There's no guarantees. You guys have to always roll up your sleeves and do the work. And then after that prophecy, suddenly what we did last time was a whole string of descriptions of Gentile kings and their interactions with Shlomo. And that was the focus, literally, for Perek Tet, for Perek Yud, right? It started with Hiram, and then it went to Malkat Shva, and it was just going on with, the different, and we spoke last time about, the different kings mentioned, that it's based on geographical proximity, right? Moving, if I'm not mistaken, from south to north. And we'll see that that's something that's a motif that's happening in our chapter as well. So either way, the focus is just constantly on the Gentile nations. And it's like, who cares? So now we're going to understand why. Because that's very much the focus of Shlomo's career, is like, okay, now we've managed to stabilize the Jewish people where they can actually get to the level of fulfilling their destiny of a light unto the nations. But the question is, how do you actually do it? And the reason it's so difficult, it's like, how do you interface with interfaith? How, in Hasidic terms, how are you able to be a mashpia without being mushpa? How do you interface with somebody in a relationship that's not condescending, that's not domineering, right? Like the missionary relationship is like, okay, I tell you what to do, you obey, and that's it. It's not really a relationship. It's like, unidirectional. It's not a dynamic. It's not a dialogue. It's a monologue. It's like, I tell you something, you accept it. And so the question is, when you want a dynamic, and that's very much what Judaism is predicated on, right? Is a dynamic with God, we can hurt him, on the flip side, I guess theoretically he could hurt us. He doesn't hurt us, he educates us. It's not the same thing. But the point is, yes, we can breach our relationship with him. And there's a constant dynamic. He leaves us room to be present and to make our own decisions, free will, which means we can do damage, we can do good, we can improve the relationship. And that's a scary thing, that vulnerability. So the question is, when you're inviting other people into that relationship, how on earth do you maintain a stable position of being the influencer without being influenced? And so with Shlomo, and I don't remember if I mentioned this last time or not, but basically what I'm pretty sure I did, someone just, pop open the chat box, just reminding me if I mentioned already, but one of the opinions is that the reason that he married so many non-Jewish women from the different nations mentioned is because he said, that's it, I am the Messiah. I have literally fulfilled every single condition necessary, or that we know is a prerequisite for the messianic era. So that means it's time for me to elevate every single spark. So that means I should marry all of these nations in order to influence them to start spreading, the ripple effect of accepting that there is one God and spreading monotheism on a higher level than Avram Avinu. So, and all the Hasidic masters said that his idea was correct, but it was just premature. He didn't know that he wasn't the end game, that it was just way too early. He was only the beginning of the long continuum of Jewish history. He wasn't even close to being the end. So we're going to take a look at more angles of that, but basically it still doesn't answer so wait a second, okay, so you have good intentions, okay, good, but how do you go from being a tzaddik, being on that level, where you're able to influence? And we saw in chapter 10 and 9 that he was successful in being an influencer. If he had a YouTube channel? Shh. But seriously, Malkat Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, comes, and it sounds like he's able to influence her and all the other kings. So what's going on that his wives are now influencing him in his old age? What's with the sudden flip? So you guys, everybody had a chance to look at the Gemara in Masechet Shabbos. And again, I know some of you misunderstood. I didn't want you guys to do all 4 amudim, right, which is 2 dapim. I didn't want you to do the whole unit. That's why I told you guys only to do page 56b, which is only the part with Shlomo. Was that clear? Okay, great. So you guys knew I only wanted you to read what Rabbi Yonatan says in the name of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman, that whoever says Shlomo sinned is merely mistaken. So, okay, so when you guys read that, so how does Rabbi Yonatan explain? I mean, the pshat seems to tell us flat out, he built altars to idols. He literally worshipped idols. So how does he deal with that? How does he explain it? Bueller. Okay. You guys read, didn't understand, didn't have a chance to read. I know some of you read it. I mean, Tal read it, and okay. So moving right along, wait, Sarah, I'm going back to it now, but honestly, well, you went and did the whole thing. Anyway, and that's way too much. It was kind of hard to understand. It was definitely hard to understand. Okay. Yes, the King of the Demons Gemara was much cooler and much more, yes. Something about his heart turning away, well, that's just a pshat. But that's at the end how he explains how we know that from the pshat that he didn't actually do the avodah zarah. So in a nutshell, basically he says that it's not that he actually committed the act of giving sacrifices to the idols or even building an altar, but rather his wives were doing it, and that he didn't stop them. So basically, there's an expression that is key to understanding that entire chain of gemaras, or because I said that Shlomo is just like one of the final stops over the course of 4 pages, where Rabbi Yonatan says, and Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman, he brings a biblical character who does something incredibly sketchy, and he starts with Ruvain, and the infamous story of, Vayishkav Reuven at Bilhah, that Reuven slept with Bilhah, his stepmom. Rabbi Yonatan says there, whoever says Reuven sinned is merely mistaken. Then he moves on to the sons of Eli, moves on to the sons of Shmuel, a Navi, moves on to David, Shlomo, Yoshiyahu. And so basically, over the course of 4 pages, it looks like he's whitewashing these characters, that he's just, trying to fudge something. But if people pay attention carefully, he's not just trying to whitewash, but that he has a very clear agenda. And he also has a methodology, because how do we know that there's a methodology? He's not arbitrarily giving a certain direction of explanation. There are certain choruses or refrains that appear over and over again throughout the 4 pages. And one of those refrains is, and it appears with Shlomo, if I'm not mistaken, is Ma'aleh alav hakatuv. Translated, the text speaks, if I translate it literally, means it's writ like, I won't even try to translate it literally. The text speaks about him as if, or the better translation, the text considers him as if. And so basically, what the methodology is, or the agenda is behind Rabbi Yonatan's, approach to explaining these, I think it's 6 stories in Tanakh, where you have men of leadership that abuse their power. It's funny because I think it's like 4 or 5 out of the 6 is connected to sexuality, where it's like abuse, like taking advantage of their power in order to seduce a woman that's off limits to them, or has to do something with women. But basically, he consistently says that it was much less significant in actuality, but that Hashem asked the prophet to record it worse than it actually was. And that's the common thread binding all 6 opinions, is that Hashem tweaked the text. He did not want the text to record the facts. I guess he deliberately planted fake news because he wanted the character to be demonized in the readers and / learners' eyes. He wanted the character to come across a lot worse than he actually was. Why? The other thing that he emphasizes, why does the text consider him as having actually committed that moral atrocity? Because the text wanted, or Hashem wanted the text to convey him from God's perspective. It's an interesting concept that sometimes the text speaks from the human POV, and sometimes God pipes up and says, I want you guys to see things from my perspective. Because the way humans see it and the way people see it is very, very different. And that's how Rabbi Yonatan explains David, Shlomo, Reuven, right? That basically, over the course of the Gemara, the explanations that they bring, and I'll give examples just so it's really concrete. For example, with Reuven, a lot of you guys have probably learned the Midrash. What did Reuven actually do? He didn't actually sleep with Bilhah, right? Rashi quotes that Midrash on the spot. It's like it's always taught in every educational institution, from kindergarten to even seminary students are taught, no, Reuven, simply what did he do? Drum roll. Rivki, what did Reuven do? Oh, Sarah, thank you. He switched the beds, right? So basically, in a nutshell, for those that are not familiar, that there's a very clear flow of the story that the Midrash is picking up on. If we were to open up the pshat now, if this was a shir on, like Rachel, Reuven, Bilhah, and Yaakov, we would literally see the Midrash has its finger on the pulse of the pshat beautifully. They're listening so carefully to the smichut parashiot, to the proximity of the units, that they're listening. Wait, the stories one follows the other, and they look disjointed. They look unconnected, but they're not. The Midrash is what weaves it together, saying this is the inherent connection between all the different psukim that seem unrelated. So basically, Rachel passes away, and then we're told, and Ruvain slept with Bilhah. The heck? Like, what's the connection? So the Midrash fills in the blanks, saying that Ruvain had watched his mother being slighted all of those years because Rachel was always the preferred wife. And then after Rachel dies, he assumes his father is going to now show his mother, who's the other head wife, preferential treatment. Because we know that in every polygamous family unit, there's always one head wife, and that's why Yaakov's household is completely anomalous, because there's two head wives, and then you have the concubines, secondary wives, or what's called sister wives. And so basically he's expecting, okay, my mother's the only head wife left. Now she'll get her proper honor. And Yaakov does not accord it to her. Instead, he accords the honor he gave to Rachel's maidservant Bilhah. And Ruvain blows a gasket saying, really? Really? It's not bad enough you slighted my mom all these decades? Now you're continuing to spit in her face and like treat a concubine better than you treat my mother? Are you nuts? And so Ruvain has it. And so he walks into Bilhah's tent, pulls out the mattress or bed or whatever bedding they used. That Yaakov had moved his bed into Bilhah's tent, saying, this is where I'm dwelling now. He pulls it out, moves it into Leah's tent, saying, you belong with the head wife, Dad, don't get confused. And so Rabbi Yonatan says, Ma'aleh alav hakatuv ki'ilu shchavah, as if he actually slept with Bilhah because he interfered in his father's intimate business. So why? Why does Hashem want us to look at it in such a like terrible way, as if he actually committed some form of incest? And again, this rule here we'll see is consistent for all the different examples that Rabbi Yonatan gives over those, two dapim, those two folios of Gemara and Masechet Shabbat. That basically, as humans, when we hear that a child or again, even an adult child, it doesn't matter, walked into their parents' bedroom and simply picked up a piece of furniture and moved it, in our human eyes, that doesn't sound like the end of the world. It's rude. It's a breach of propriety, without question. But it's not morally like completely perverted and decrepit, right? But from Hashem's perspective, because he knew Reuven, and he knew what level Reuven was capable of spiritual greatness, he said, I expected so much more of you. This is so beneath you. This isn't even on the spectrum of where you should be behaving. So Hashem says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when you're writing out Sefer Bereshit, you're taking dictation, so I'm composing this. Yeah, I know Reuven didn't actually sleep with Bilhah, but please write down Vayishkav Reuven. Yeah, but Moshe's like, again, I'm like totally making this up. Obviously, Moshe didn't necessarily say anything to God, but if we could just, imagine it for a second, I would imagine Moshe's eyebrows shot up, at least, like, that didn't actually happen. God's like, right. Because I want people to think that. Because again, Hashem doesn't want us to be readers of Tanakh, he wants us to be learners. So he doesn't ever expect us to just read it, take it for granted, moving right along. He always wants us to dive deeper and say, well, that doesn't make sense. So we're going to open up Midrash and Rashi and Ramban and Rambam and Ibn Ezra, right? That's learning. So that's why he's not worried about writing Reuven slept with Bilhah, because he knows we're not going to park ourselves there. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep digging. So basically he says, Moshe, write it down, because Hashem's saying, from my perspective, it's as if that happened. Because I was expecting such more refined behavior from Reuven. And so this rule is true for David and Bathsheba. It's true. Rabbi Yonatan proves legally, halachically, yeah, it was okay with David and with Bathsheba, technically, bureaucratically. And Hashem saying, but this is David. Do you know what I expected of him? Like that he should not have relied on that legal loophole, because that was so morally twisted what he did. So he tells Shmuel, write it down, or Natan in this case, please write it down as if he actually committed murder, he murdered Uriah, as if he committed adultery with Bathsheba, because from my POV, from my perspective, that's how I see it, as such level moral decrepit. Rivki couldn't type before, was going to write move the bed. Okay, let's stay there. So with Shlomo, also, that Hashem is saying, wait a second, Shlomo, the level that you're on, you know that your wives are building these temples in Jerusalem, by the way, right, near Har HaBayit, right? The commentators point out, because it mentions that where did they build these altars and all of these things? It says the mountain facing, the Beis HaMikdash. And so our Rashi and the sages point out it's on Har HaZitim, the Mount of Olives. which is again one of the most sacred places to the Jewish people. And it's just mind-boggling. Like you have the Beit HaMikdash, and over here, like you literally have an altar to Chemosh, like what? And again, I think it's the Malbim that he points out that they literally had plaques, sponsored by Shlomo HaMelech. So again, he didn't actually build it by himself, and he knew what was going on, but he turned a blind eye. And Hashem says, no, Yirmiyahu, when you write Sefer Melachim, write, Az Yivneh Shlomo Bana. He built it himself, because what I was expecting of him, he would pipe up and say, Na'ama, Bat Paro, whoever it is, please, like, no, I did not authorize this. No, you may not do that. And so because he didn't pipe up, then for all posterity, it's written down as if he actually did it. And the interesting thing is that the pshat, the way these psukim are written, it's meant to hearken us, back to the earlier prakim, like even the nusach of Az Yivneh Shlomo Bama, right? And in those, and then he built the altar to Chemosh, the chief god of the Moabites. And it's like, so does anyone recall in some of the previous prakim where it says as like Shlomo something? I guess if you guys read in English, it's like less, you hear it less. But basically, like the previous chapters where it says, when Shlomo's building the temple, when he finishes, or when he raises his voice in prayer, right? So, one second, I'm just going to hear. Like in Perek Chet, Az Amar Shlomo, Hashem Amar Lishkon Ba'arafel, and his whole lofty prayer that he says to God about that whole long thing here, I can't believe it, that wow, I built this house for you, for your glory. It starts off with the same construct, and there are other places in earlier chapters, and so Dat Mikra points out that here Yirmiyahu says to contrast it to the reader, that you just literally go like to this deterioration, that on the one hand, Az Yivneh, Bama, like okay, that same Shlomo, he's now capable of also building, or again, even being an accomplice to, even tacitly, to these temples, to the to the idols. So what's going on? Like, okay, so we've now exonerated him a little bit. Okay, he didn't actually worship. He didn't give sacrifices to Chemosh and Ashtoreth, and okay, but why are we still left with this horrible, heavy feeling of something here doesn't work? Like, how did he actually go from being a tzaddik who's able to achieve what no other tzaddik, even Moshe Rabbeinu, wasn't worthy to build a house for God, a place where God literally dwelt for 410 years? Like, Yoshua wasn't able to do that. So David HaMelech wasn't able to do that. And David was in many ways greater than Shlomo. No, Shlomo merited, and so he's going to go now and turn a blind eye and let idolatry just be rampant opposite the Beit HaMikdash? Like, what's up with that? So we're going to take a look. Wait, how much time do we have? Oy vey. All right, Beseder. But we're still fine. We're still fine. So basically, if you had to summarize Shlomo's career in one word, right? What is his claim to fame? And again, it's even mentioned, over and over again in the pshat, in the chapters we've been doing until now. Daddy? No, where do you get daddy from? It's barely, I don't think any of his kids are even mentioned. Oh, he's the son of David? No, his own merit. He has his own cred. Something that he's famous for, that he even surpassed his father on. His father wasn't famous for this trait. This was uniquely Shlomo. Exactly, wisdom. Chacham mikol adam chokhmah. So understanding what chokhmah is really crucial to understanding Shlomo's greatest strength and his greatest weakness. And I hinted to this earlier, that in Judaism, this is one of the amazing paradoxical things about Judaism. We don't really believe in a black and white world, which is also why we're the most annoying nudnik religion. All other religions pretty much are easier to subscribe to philosophically, because they just pretty much choose one side or the other. Like pagan religions say, being spiritual, self-suppressing our basic animalistic drive is way too hard. So commit orgies and sacrifice humans, and paganism just really gives into what Freud would call the id, right? So we're less conflicted. Like we're not asked to, restrain ourselves in any way. And then you have the monotheistic religions all the way in the opposite extreme, Catholicism and so much of Islam, and right where it's just like really intense, where it's all about like, okay, Catholicism is just a great example, celibacy. And I mean, it's interesting because Buddhism is pagan, but they also are very like ascetic, like, just fasting and like not speaking and being removed from the physical world, trying to break every physical dependence. And it's just interesting, like they're just always choosing a pole, because bridging heaven and earth is very, very difficult, because it's gray. It's just this gray area. So either saying the physical is bad, just get rid of it and totally immerse yourself in the spiritual, or the opposite, that's just easier. It's just, choosing one side. Doing the tightrope act constantly of bringing heaven down to earth and elevating the physical to become godly, that's a balancing act on a tightrope where you can just easily fall off. And it's exhausting. And that's Judaism, that's also why Christianity broke off from Judaism initially, is because they were saying this is too hard. The physical is really just an obstacle. It's way too hard for us. It tempts us. So let's just get rid of it and just immerse ourselves in spirituality, and that's it. And Judaism has been the unique religion that's saying, no, we're trying to navigate the gray. We're trying to master this tightrope act of welcoming God into the physical world and elevating this physical world and turning it into something beautiful and spiritual. So Chokhmah is, wait, train of thought lost. Hold on. Aish. All right, it'll come back. But basically, with Chokhmah, understanding, what it is as a sphira. Now I remember. Okay, so basically, in Judaism, there's no black or white. So for example, and Hasidus took this a step further, where Hasidus even took what we would assume are just solely negative traits, like impudence, chutzpah, like arrogance, like anger, like so many things. We're just like, no, that's just bad. Whoever is angry is as if, they're idol worshippers. There's so many things. And they're like, you know what? There is that bikdusha, that you even have a holy version of that. So they take even like things that are good, and they're like, be wary, right? Like being a chassid, right? Like the concept of tzaddik and pelt, right? Or like, a chassidish yetzer hara. Yeah, like, and again, that's a separate farbrengen. But again, the yetzer hara could put on the borsalino, and he could show up, with the tchelis and the tzitzis and start saying, you should really do more mitzvos. And really, that's literally the key that he's using to destroy you through mitzvos, because he's messing with you. On the flip side, right, there is literally impudence that could be used for holiness. And Hasidus took it to an extreme, where there's a famous story that my noters, guys have probably heard this a million times, but basically, Reb Lev of Sasov, he was teaching this concept in his yeshiva, and one of the smart Alex in his yeshiva said, oh yeah, everything can be used for godly service, everything can be elevated. Okay, what about heresy? What about being a pikoris? Go show me how that could be used for avodas Hashem, for kedusha. Literally believing that there's no God, no creator, and without missing a beat. Rav Lev of Sasov said, what do you mean? Of course heresy could be used for avodas Hashem. There are times where a person has to be a heretic, that when it's time to give tzedakah, that there's somebody asking you for tzedakah, at that moment you have to be a heretic. Because why? What do we do? How do we like rationalize it for ourselves? I don't have to help this guy, because God will help him. God takes care of everybody. God makes sure nobody's lacking. So I have to take care of this guy because Hashem takes care of everyone. And Reb Lev said, at that moment, be a heretic. If I don't save this person, no one will save him. There is no God to save him. So he said, yeah, you could use being a kofar, a heretic, to do avodas Hashem, to do chesed in a more lofty level. So basically, everything has its good side, its kedusha manifestation, and its klipa, its evil or negative manifestation. And it's just literally it's all a question of how do we use it. So chokhmah too, and again, it's not just wisdom. According to Kabbalah and Hasidus, chokhmah is a cognitive function, just like bina, right? Bina is a cognitive function. It's not like understanding. Understanding is just the manifestation of it, but it's a power that basically, like bina, and again, my noters, help me out here. What did Rabbi Levinger teach you guys? Bina is, what's the more accurate translation other than understanding? Well, understanding is also good, but bina would be, okay, I won't tell Rabbi Levinger, you guys don't know. Stop. It's analysis, right? It's literally breaking any given concept, right? It's approaching it in an analytical way. It's looking at it and seeing what are the parts that make this up, and then being able to break it down to its particles in order to be able to apply it. And that's exactly why women are considered, as having bina yetera, having an added measure of bina, because women are actually, ironically, more analytical in this way than men. What it means is like breaking things down to their parts, right? I mean, just strictly biologically, right? How does conception work? A woman is given 2 cells. What is the first thing that her body does? It receives the zygote, which is 2 cells, one inside of the other. It breaks it down into bazillions and bazillions of cells, right? And then some group often become a lung, and some group often become fingers, and it becomes a child. And so too, right? A woman is analytical. I mean, we are our own worst enemies. We look in the mirror, instead of just looking, okay, my face looks good. It's like, wait, no, I have this tiny smudge of eyeliner. Oh no, now my whole face looks bad because there's this one thing. But again, I like, without going into whole farbrengen about Bina, because I do want to focus on Chokhmah, but basically that's a female power of focusing on the details, being very detail oriented in order to be able to apply it. So Chokhmah is the flip side. Chokhmah is unifying, is finding the common denominator, is finding the point of intersection. For example, learning Pardes according to Hasidus is essentially a Chokhmah mode of learning, because we're sitting there, we're first doing the Bina of analyzing the pshat, remez, drush, sod, understanding them down to its deepest level, then removing the garment from the body, and then Chokhmah, we just go up to the next level to say, well, what's the point of intersection? Where is the point of unity? And how do they all work together? So Chokhmah is all about finding the common denominator, even among things that are seemingly disparate, like a midrash that contradict head-on pshat, right? How on earth, like, look, one says black, one says white. But wait a second. No, peel away the distractions and you'll find that point of unity. That's Chokhmah. So now we understand Shlomo. What are we always told about Shlomo? That all the different things in pshat that we're told about his ability to be chacham, he was able to speak to the birds, and he was able to speak to the animals, he was able to speak to the trees, and he was able to say thousands of metaphors, mishalim. What does that mean? He was able to take any issue and find a way to translate it in terms that any human could understand. He was always able to find a point of unity and communicate that. So his whole function is unifying things that don't necessarily go together naturally. That means the spiritual and the physical. He's able to build a base of Mikdash, because something spiritual that is unlimited to time and space, God, he's able to build a house that's a physical house. He's able to bridge these 2 worlds together. He's able to unify the 12 tribes, ladies, right? He's able to rule over the 12 tribes. And so then after he manages all these different levels of unity in all of existence, right? Speaking to all the different animals, then all of a sudden the kings and queens start coming to him, and he's able to reach out and unite with them as well. Hiram wants to, give resources to build the space of English. And Malkat Sheva is excited to cooperate with Shlomo. And she says, wow, I sign me up, like your God is amazing and your wisdom is amazing. And so he's able to unify from a place, not of like dictatorship, but from divine desire, because he finds a way to create unity. And so basically, there also is the Achilles heel, because nothing is without its price. So on the one hand, that is his career, that is his agenda, is to seek to unify all these different worlds. But because it was premature, he bit off more than he can chew. So he's inviting all of these influences in before he actually has all the tools necessary to unify them in a way where he's solely the influencer without being influenced. And so it's not that he's just, either suffering from dementia or he's just senile or whatever, but that basically he's on a roll. He's being actually really consistent. And so he's continuing to unify, or attempting to, but he's losing himself in the process a little bit. And the Malbim gives a beautiful explanation. He says, you have to understand something. It's not that Shlomo was even giving funds to his wives to build temples, or to idols. It's not that he was that stupid and jelly brained. He says that what the Midrashim are not mentioning, but that I think he's referring to Kabbalistic sources there, that he's teaching his wives the secret of why does idolatry exist, because what they asked him, explain to us, like, we know that everything receives its life force from Hashem, otherwise it can't exist. So where do the idols, like, there has to be a kernel of truth, otherwise it couldn't exist. So where do they get their sustenance from spiritually? And so he explained to them the secrets of, how, like, what a Chassid is called Hishtalshalos, right? The way things come from their spiritual potential state, how they pass into this world to become physical objects, right? Every single one of us at one point was just godly desire and nothing else. And then all of a sudden we pass through the four worlds, right? Of Atzilus and then out of Bria, Yetzirah. Again, even cognitively, at first we only have our desire, then thoughts, speech, until action, right? Our bodies eventually came into being, but that's one of the last phases after, like, God first formed the different layers of our soul. And even the soul, there's the more abstract levels of the soul. The nefesh, Ramban writes that the nefesh is even tangible. You can actually touch the nefesh. That's why the nefesh is in the blood. So everything is gradual. So basically, what he did was he taught the Torah, explaining, you want to understand why these frivolous, stupid things like exist and people follow it. So this is their spiritual source that they derive sustenance from. This is why they exist. And by the way, this is how Rambam in Hilchot Yesodei Torah explains why idolatry exists. In the beginning, everybody understood that the sun is the sun and it's just created by the creator and it's not its own power. And then at some point, people got, things got lost in translation, where people started wanting, oh no, I'm going to thank the sun. I remember that it's a godly servant, but I want to thank it for being a good godly servant and warming me up and making my plants grow into photosynthesis. And, and then at some point, the means became an end. So basically, the Malbim explains, according to, I think, Sod, is that basically the wives, what he explained to them is the relationship of means and end, but then they took it somewhere else. Otherwise, the Malbim says he actually didn't have permission to explain it to them, just because they weren't on the level where they were able to learn that. So note the consistent thread here of Chokhmah. Now, what was his great sin? Was that he's unifying things that are not ready to be unified. The wives, that they were Giorises and they were, righteous in their own way. After all, they had to have some kind of merit. I mean, he's not just going to take like random people, but he unified them with the knowledge that they were not ready to handle. And that led to them actually building these temples. So you can imagine that they're saying to him, well, so we're going to build this structure now that we understand, like, we're really honoring God, but, and something's getting lost in translation. Things are fuzzy, but that's the problem with Chokhmah, right? Bina is very precise. It breaks everything down to its particles and to its, factors, whereas Chokhmah sometimes blurs things in order to find the point of unity. So that is the next step about understanding Shlomo, is that it was a premature unity, which again, if your family tradition is to wait 6 hours in between meat and milk, and you only waited, 4.5 hours, and you have that dairy coffee after you had steak, it's no good. It's a unity that doesn't go. And so basically with Shlomo, he doesn't suddenly, schizo out on us, but rather that he's continuing his obsession with Chokhmah, and he takes it too far. That's at least according to the sources that I have found. I'm sure there are plenty of other amazing sources, but this is what I found thus far. 1 second, there was one other point I wanted to make. Okay, hold on. Right. And so basically the other point about Chokhmah. Okay, so there was a Gemara, and I'm going to see if I can do share screen. Hold on, not this. Okay. Okay, you guys see it? Somebody send me a sign. Speak. Okay, Rivki, it says hand raised. You guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, so the Gemara says, first of all, I literally wish I could send you all 4 pages. If you want to know all the most beautiful midrashim on Shlomo HaMelech, Rivki, take note. Sanhedrin, Kaf, Aleph, like whatever, like Daf, Kaf, Amud, Aleph, until Kaf, Aleph, Amud, Bet. It's 4 dapim of gorgeous midrashim, but the reason I didn't assign it is because it's a little confusing, ladies, because it jumps around topics, and if you don't, as you say in Yiddish, hold kop, you can get a little lost. So that's why I did not assign, even though it's very tempting to give you guys all 4 pages because it's gorgeous. But I did want to do the last section with you together. So the way the Gemara ends off, trying to understand Shlomo, because what the Gemara does, it analyzes his career, and most of our midrashim on Perek Yud Aleph are from these 4 amudim of Gemara, right? Of Kaf and Kaf Aleph in Sanhedrin. So basically, it goes in and out like, oh, why did he take so many wives? Why didn't he keep the halacha? Why did he take so many horses, etc.? Why do you have so much gold? It just breaks down Shlomo's career. A lot of juicy midrashim are there, as you'll see, Rifki, when you prepare your classes on Melachim. So basically, I'll read this out loud. Rabbi Yitzchak also said, why were the reasons of some of the biblical laws not revealed? This is a very, very startling statement because he sort of breaks the flow. Right in the beginning, it's just talking about Shlomo, and all of a sudden it says, why did Hashem not reveal the Tamei mitzvot? The explanation about why to keep, meat and dairy, why not to eat pork, why to wear tefillin. So what is the answer the Gemara gives? Because in 2 verses, the reasons were revealed, and they caused the greatest in the world to stumble. Thus it is written, he shall not multiply wives to himself, whereas Shlomo said, I will multiply wives, and yet not let my heart be perverted. Shlomo was able to learn the halachot, and he said, wait, that's why Yatut Levavo, they're going to steer my heart in the wrong direction? No, that doesn't apply to me. That reason, are you kidding? Because I'm on such a, I'm a Shiach. What do you mean? This doesn't apply to me, so I have to keep this halacha. And again, it is written, he shall not multiply to himself horses, concerning which Shlomo, I will multiply them, and they will not cause Israel to return to Egypt, right? So he's reading Psukim and Dvarim, Kaf Gimel. No, not Kaf Gimel. Hold on. Yud Zayin. Yes, I think. Dvarim Yud Zayin, I think, is the laws of king, where it's mentioned, that he's not allowed to have too many horses, lest he lead the people back to Egypt, because horses are not native to Israel, only donkeys are. So in order to get horses, Israel had to import them from Egypt. The other animal Israel imported to Israel because it wasn't native to Israel is geese. Geese do not naturally or are not natural to Israel. Geese and ducks, so that also their geese and ducks, they came from Egypt. Anyway, so basically, in order to prevent the Jewish people from moving en masse and returning to Egypt, so a king was only supposed to have the bare minimum of horses. And Shlomo's like, but I'm not going to return the people to Egypt. What do you mean? I wouldn't do that. So this is also not applicable to me. And so now, ladies, anyone recall what is the prerequisite for chokhmah, right? I'm going to stop the share screen now. Hold on. Okay. Our sages always tell us that if a person wants to attain Shmuli Lachshav, that if a person wants to attain chokhmah, so Sarah, do you recall, or Rifki, in Hasidus, what does it talk about? That what is the key to obtaining chokhmah? Or anyone know the Gemara or the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos? Sarplakin, logically, no ego. Okay, so what's the term in Hebrew for that? Right? Getting rid of your ego. Bitul. Thank you, Tal. Excellent. Exactly. Bitul, again, not erasing oneself, nullifying oneself. It's 2 totally different things. Nullifying means I still exist, I'm still me, but I'm choosing to push myself aside to create room for something else that I'm inviting into my life. Erasing means I'm saying I'm no good and I'm getting rid of myself, my personality, my everything. Whereas nullification is saying I'm just pushing myself to the side a little bit to create room so that I can coexist with something else. So basically, like in the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, siag lachochma shtika, silence. So what is silence? It's not that I can't speak. It's not that I don't have what to say. I am choosing to be quiet now, right? Shtika is another word for bitul. I'm choosing to keep my mouth closed right now because I want to hear the wisdom and absorb it and accept it. So basically, in Chassidut, talk about bitul. Why? Right? Because it's so tempting when a person feels they know a lot to start to get high on themselves, which is why the Alter Rebbe writes that in the 4 elements of the soul, right? There's the fire of the soul, the earth of the soul. In Tanya, chapter 1, so he talks about that all the elements, again, back to the theme of nothing is binary in Judaism, everything has its positive and negative manifestation. It's all one coin with 2 faces. Alter Rebbe writes, there is the fire of the soul. End of discussion. The soul is made up of 4 elements. The fire of the soul has a positive manifestation, which is ambition or chokhmah. The negative manifestation is gava, is arrogance slash kas, because in some ways they're synonymous. So basically, the Alter Rebbe writes that it's just two sides of the same coin, because when you succeed in achieving things and understanding great lofty concepts that most people don't understand, it's such a natural thing to sort of get high on yourself. So basically but that actually shoots in the foot because it fills the vessel up so that you can no longer receive. Just like so many academics, they like discover some kind of theory, they get sold on it, and they are not able to process any new information, any new research or studies, because they're just like, no, I discovered this great theory, and sometimes something comes along and disproves them or enriches their theory, and they can't hear it. Because no, I invented this wheel. What do you mean? I discovered this. And so a true Torah sage is someone that is chacham mikol adam, right? Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Ezu chacham halomed mikol adam. And one of the Hasidic masters says, why was Shlomo smart? Because he was able to learn from everything. He would see an ant walking, and he's like, this ant has something great to teach me. And he would sit there and listen carefully. What can the ant teach me? And that's chokhmah, right? That point of unity, that like finding wisdom in everything. So when he was nullifying himself, that's the key to just getting more and more and more wisdom. And again, there's so many examples in Midrashim that talk about that. Shlomo, literally, he looked at everybody, including his Gentile counterparts, and he said, well, what can I learn from them? But not in terms of morality or whatever. The Torah is the Torah. But he's saying true wisdom comes from looking at every bad situation, good situation, everything, and just saying, this is coming to teach me something. I want to be a student in the school of life. And that's the secret to becoming truly wise. So basically, now we see how that Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin was the beginning of the end, that he's sitting there and he's learning Torah. But when he said, okay, well, I understand this. I understand the halacha. The Chumash says why you shouldn't have too many wives, but I'm going to marry righteous women and it's just not going to be a problem. So this doesn't apply to me. Once he no longer nullified himself before the sages or before the halacha, then that's already the beginning of the end. And then you have the, irony that it's exactly, or not necessarily irony, but poetic justice, I guess, of the fulfillment of, you think you're above the halacha? You think you're above that? No, you're a human. Your sweat smells too. You pass gas like everybody else. Guess what? You're just a person. And so, yeah, you're not exempt from the halacha, even if you think you are. Yes, you're the smartest human ever created, but at the end of the day, you're just a person, and no, you're not exempt. And so basically, that's a tremendous lesson. I know for me, Sarah Plotkin question, have we checked all of the things in Shaul's speech when he talks about kings? What do you mean Shaul talking about kings? What do you mean by that?
So like when he says, I will, a king will take your daughters, he will take your wives,
right.
he will take your money, he will take your, right, the whole thing. So between David, taking Bathsheba and whatnot, and Shlomo and whatever, have we did a V in all of those things?
Sarah, Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Kaf. Literally, that's where it opens, because it's the series of Mishnayot that quote those psukim in Mishpat HaMelech, and it just halachically breaks it down. So the Gemara is diving into it, and they constantly bring up, so did Shlomo keep this? Is this optional? Is this mandatory? What is Shmuel and Navi talking about there in Mishpat HaMelech in those psukim? So you have homework, read Daf Kaf in Masechet Sanhedrin. So you and Rivki both have homework to read that. But in a nutshell, I know for me, when I read that midrash, or I think I heard it in a shir in seminary maybe, I just remember it blew my mind, and it's something that guided me, that whenever I felt myself getting frustrated with a certain halacha, or I remember when I was a kala, I was so frustrated with sheitel because it didn't make, Rivki, you're running off? Okay. But basically, the whole sheitel thing was very, very hard for me because it felt not tanua, it felt wrong, it felt so many things. And I also, as you guys know me, I'm a cerebral person, I need to understand everything. And so it just didn't make sense. It didn't work for me. And the one thing that really saved me was, wait, no, I have to hear this about sheitel. Okay, I'm literally 2 more seconds because I'm keeping my eye on the clock. I don't want to delay anybody any further. I know I'm already over time. But basically, every single time, and sheitel was my big, burden, but any halacha, whenever I would say, wow, this is so hard for me, I would literally hear that voice of Rabbi Yitzchak saying, the smartest of all men thought, this halacha doesn't apply to me. And I would just like remember saying to myself, well, Letty, the Lubavitch Rebbe, who's a hell of a lot smarter than you, little Gila Lowell, right? And Rabbi Akiva is also, okay, he's not a good example because he's like too early, but the other Chachamim that did, let's say, speak about shekels, okay, let's just use that example, said, wow, it's the Chatchila. They're smarter than you. And they say that it's kosher. It's even a good thing. So what are the chances, just strictly logically, that you know better than the Lubavitch Rebbe? Just strictly logically, I'm not asking you to make a leap of faith, nothing. Who's smarter, you or the Rebbe? Okay, duh, the Rebbe. So the Rebbe says lechatchila. So now you don't understand it. This means that it doesn't make sense. And for me, it's like, okay, deep breath. I'm putting the sheitel on because I'm choosing to let this into my life. I know that I don't know everything. And as an aside, whenever I was struggling with understanding a certain piece of Torah, when I would go through that internal process, within a certain amount of time, obviously it wasn't immediate, I would find things opening up. I would find certain understandings coming because it was just like, Mama, you don't know everything. It's okay. Just sit and wait for it to come. So anyway, just as an aside, when we're struggling, it's an invitation to grow. It's an invitation to remember that it's not an embarrassing thing to not have it all figured out. That it's one of the beautiful things of being a person is having that vulnerability. We can always grow. There's always space. There's something we don't know. There's always room to fill it up with something else and then just expand. So anyway, next time we're going to dive into the cracked out midrash. We'll see if, then in 2 weeks we'll do, Perek Yud Bet. But anyway, so I'm asking you guys to take a second look at the Gemara in Gittin, that crazy thing with the Shamir and with the King of the Demons, etc. Because what we're going to be doing is analyzing each icon. We're going to be double clicking. What is the Shamir? What is this? What is Shlomo's ring? And opening up, what website does it open up to? And this entire analysis is going to be based on the Maharal's analysis in his commentary on this piece of Gemara, where he does a beautiful analysis. So anyway, see you next week. And yeah, take care. So Sunday. Where can we find more Gemara on Navi like today?
Thank you so much, Gila. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Tal, I will think about it, but it's a challenge. Like basically Rashi, honestly, because all he does is just bring midrashim from the Gemaras on the psukim. That's the easiest cheat sheet.